Hey everybody, this is Gaynor Meilke from Charisma Inc. And today I wanted to talk to you about back to front marketing and front to back marketing. It's something that I don't think enough firms, accounting firms or legal firms or professional services firms tend to think about. It's something actually that consumer-oriented businesses tend to think about more, and that is where does the customer journey begin and end when you're trying to attract new prospects or even work with your existing clients. So when we think about front to back marketing, we have where does the prospect start learning about you? And that might not even be like in person or on your website. It might be on an ad online. It could be they see you speak somewhere, you meet them, or one of your colleagues at an event, and that's the first touch point. Then they might look at your website, fill out a form, or make contact with you, make a phone call, and then how do you respond to that? And that's where a lot of times you might even have that first chunk of the journey in your head and figured out what happens. But then once they actually get into your pipeline, what are you doing with them? And so we have helped a lot of firms and businesses create a customer journey map that then we kind of tie into automation and tech so that, when somebody hits your website, they can fill out a form, express what their interest is, or maybe you have multiple offices, then you can actually route that person in the right direction and save everybody's time and frustration. So, for example, if you have somebody comes to your website, fills out a form, they're interested in, say, tax services as a business, they can then be directed towards the right person, and you have a good idea of what they need before you even make contact with them. You could even automate them receiving some kind of survey or intake form, and then you can determine, are they worth your time to meet with, or is there a better alternative that you could direct them to? And then once we get into the customer journey that far, there's the engagement piece of it. There's the first meetings, all of those prospecting, kind of assuring the customer and the client that they've made a good decision by working with your firm, because usually it's within the first 30 to 60 days that buyer's remorse might set in. So we want to offset that. And we can do that without a lot of work face to face, just by having touch points and assuring them of the process. So if you've ever worked in the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS, a big piece of the marketing is actually putting together what that customer journey looks like and then having all those touch points along the way. And that also helps your team internally know what deliverables need to be made at each step of the process. So that's just one other piece of that client journey. And you're going from front to kind of like the back of the relationship, which, there's the middle piece, which people are usually pretty good at by serving their clients and customers appropriately. But if you need to offboard people, what does that process look like? Or if you're very deep into a relationship, what does a re-engagement look like? What does additional services look like from that customer journey? And so we actually map out all of those according to what your particular firm or business needs. So when we think about back to front, oftentimes people in business tend to think about just that end piece, serving people, and not necessarily how they're going to look at the journey from end to end. So you might start at the back of how you're going to serve, but not think about what it looks like to the customer on the front end. And another, quick point is if you're building a brand and you're trying to break into speaking, or you're doing some kind of lead generation, whether that's like webinars or something that is more of an event style, if you don't have the back end figured out, you're probably wasting your time. So a lot of speakers or thought leaders or CEOs who want to use speaking or webinars or online events to help them grow their business, they don't think about how am I capturing the leads and then what is the pipeline journey for those. And I think, it sounds so simple, but if you're doing any of the event-based in-person or online um, events, you need to think about, is there a QR code that you're going to give to people either while you're speaking, after you're speaking, and then how does that fit into a CRM? And then what does the nurture cycle look like? Are you trying to sell them something? Do you want them to book an appointment? Are you going to retarget them using ads? So there's oftentimes that emphasis on getting the opportunity to speak, but not necessarily the opportunity to speak is the means to an end, is to get them into your CRM and then be able to have that relationship with them from front to back and back to front. So that's just a synopsis on our philosophy about how to think about the customer journey and then to start to put it in place and why it's so important. Because if you actually get somebody to engage with you online or in person, then that's a golden opportunity to really show them what it's like to work with you and then also to keep them engaged and a paying customer just by thinking about their journey with your business, with your firm, and how you can optimize it so that it's the best experience for you and for your client.